Now, writing a book is perhaps something you could have thought about, but are perhaps not just quite sure how to go about doing. Dale Beaumont has founded the Secrets Exposed series. At just 28, he's already published 16 bestsellers, and he joins me in the studio now to talk about self-publishing, how to overcome writer's block, and indeed the ins and outs of being an entrepreneurial writer. A warm welcome to you. It is great to have someone of your energy with us this morning.
Pleasure.
Dale. It's always that conundrum, a great idea, but the follow-through often lets so many people down. If you were to reflect on how you did that, what was the catalyst to be proactive?
Yeah, you definitely have to be proactive when it comes to being an author. The catalyst for me writing this Secrets Exposed series was to get my message out to lots of people. And I did that through the medium of books. Books are a really wonderful way to be able to reach people that you may never reach on your own.
But what makes you have that skill? Because you can have the idea, but that's not synonymous with being able to put it into print. What gave you that? Were you born with it? Did you have to work on it?
Well, it's actually quite funny because I'm actually dyslexic, and so the idea of writing books was kind of something that I never thought I'd really do. Right. But it's just like any process. You just follow some simple steps, and you know, that goes through writing, and then you go through the editing and distribution. And for me, it was really about just learning what to do, coming up with good titles, coming up with you know, copy for the book was important. And then at the end of the day, any successful venture comes down to marketing and just getting out there and telling people about your work.
Well, let's talk about that in a moment, but the actual discipline of writing, was the rest of your life put on hold? Did relationships suffer? Is there a trade-off, in other words, in this whole process? And if so, which is the greatest trade-off of all?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's just coming up with a formula that worked. I just put aside like about an hour a day, and that was my writing time, and I just would, you know, chunk through my book and was able to kind of get the bulk of it done within just a couple of short months. For other people, they just want to go away on a bit of a sabbatical type thing. They might take a week and they'll just switch off their phone, disconnect the internet, and they'll just focus on their writing. So
one of those books, an hour a day, when you reflect, on average, how long would it take you to churn one of those out?
These ones are a little bit different because I interviewed a lot of highly successful people in a range of different areas, compiled all of that knowledge and put it together in a book. So these ones took around about 3 to 4 months each to put together. But
what about finding an editor, for example? I mean, that's something that you don't just pluck from thin air. You've got to have contacts, I suppose. And,
exactly.
I mean, that wasn't your sphere of influence. I mean, you're an athlete. So how do you develop the contact base?
Yeah, it was just out there, sort of getting out there and networking and talking to other successful authors and asking for referrals and meeting people, sending them a couple of sample chapters and saying, you know, can you go through and edit this and tell me what you think?
But it was almost, what, a bit of a potluck to begin with? Or did you then find someone who you've stuck with there on in?
It was a bit of that case. It took a while to find the right person, but once I did find the right editor, it really is an important, very important person in your writing success, is to have a great editor.
And having a great publisher as well is fundamental, and yet you took the decision, correct me if I'm wrong, even from the start, to do that yourself. Now, what was the advantage to that, and who told you to do that?
Well, the advantages of self-publishing books is that you've got speed to market. You can get your books out much quicker than going through a major publisher. You also have complete credit of your work, and the other thing is that per book you can actually make a higher percentage in the profit. And so that's the reason why I chose to self-publish, and I'd really recommend that as a vehicle for other people that want to write a book. Don't just think that you have to rely on the major publishers, because it's becoming increasingly difficult to get published with a major. But by starting on your own, creating a bit of a following, establishing an audience, and then going to a publisher, completely different ballgame.
So now you're doing this still under your own steam, or you've passed it on to someone to get that kind of leap offshore even as well, because that's the next thing, isn't it? You want to be in other markets.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've still retained the rights here in Australia and self-published the books, and I have got distributors now internationally. I have a distributor in Singapore that gets the books into Singapore, Malaysia and Brunei. Because the books are primarily deal with Australian-based content, I haven't yet delved into but perhaps next year I'll be looking at some other book series, and we'll look at international distribution.
I just wanted to also think about how people are going to hear about some of this, because can you, for instance, retire tomorrow? is it enough to think this is now earning me with the royalties and everything else that I don't need to work again? Or are you still having to plough on?
Well, the majority of the profits from most books are made within the first, say 12 to 18 months. There is a certain residual that does continue for years and years to come, and I'm fortunate to receive now an ongoing income from my books. But it's still a case of the books, unless you're one of the the handful that maybe live on for 5 or 10 years, your books will need to be revised, they will need to be updated, and you'll come up with a fresh cover and a fresh look. It's all really important.
Tell me about an event that you're going to be headlining at. This is this month, what, the 20th to the 22nd of November?
Correct.
Yep, the Cashflow Boom Conference, and this is taking place simultaneously throughout Australia.
That's right. It's actually in 3 locations, in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, and it's going to be a pretty full-on schedule because we're doing 3 days in a row, but we have some of the best speakers from Australia and around the world that are going to be at that event, and it's all about how you can make more cash in 2010. So I think the website's Cashflow Boom 2010, and there's going to be lots of great content and great information on those 3 days.
Well, we do wish you well in it. I hope the plane is not delayed to get you from A to B, and really, congratulations.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Dale Beaumont there, of course, author and inspirational speaker, and plenty more besides.